Donald will be here. Yay! Hello! Hello, everybody. It's me. And it's John. John at Talking Story. The fabulous John Minton, who is missing his sidekick today, which is a little bit of a shame because I quite like Jacob.
We all like Jacob.
The charmer.
But I can promise you.
But he hasn't read it. So
I was just going to say, I can promise you he hadn't read this.
he barely reads. You know, how he has the producing role of a booktube channel, I'm not entirely sure of. But I do like his presence. It's a lot of fun.
It's all technical acumen. That's what he brings.
He's bringing the knowledge. I see.
Yeah.
So you're just the talent, is what you're telling me.
I mean, look, I'm telling you, I used to run around talking about books and nobody to people that, you know, my wife and Jacob, and they got so tired of it. He just said, I'll make a channel. So please start talking to people that might care, because we are not it. We will never be it. So that's how it all came about. I don't know quite how my phone works. I have a phone in my pocket, and I know it works like my old phone on the kitchen wall when I was 16. Yeah. Beyond that, I don't know. I have no idea. So that's why he's here.
But I don't know how they work either. Well, we've got some people in the chat already. Hello, welcome everybody. Tharnell, who I can always rely on, is always just a wonderful supporter of the channel. Welcome. And of course, Evie, my sidekick in the love of Realm of the Elderlings. And we've got some more. We've had Phillips here, Brian, of course, Shad. Oh, I'm sorry, Shad always shows up late, and he's here on time.
He's here on time. Way to go.
Oh, feel special. And who have we got? Capricious Fox, hello. Avoiding spoilers, though. Good plan. Yeah. I won't be able to help myself.
Me neither.
That's why I just go full spoilers. It's my channel. It's niche enough. If you're not ready for spoilers, what are you doing here?
You do you.
We've got a newbie. The Great War only joined me this week, so welcome. This I think will be your first live here. And that's And Shad's not working. Okay, fair enough.
That's a good day.
Okay, so we've said our hellos. Anyone who comes in after this, I will perhaps wave at you. I'm not going to ignore you. But please ask any questions if you have any for me or for John, because I, as you know, have read it far more times than is rational. And John is our newbie who's taking the journey for the first time.
Yes.
Now, what has taken you so long? I mean, come on, John. You're even older than me.
Yes. Right? I should have gotten to this. Well, okay.
Come on, it's been out a while. It's been finished for a while.
This is one of the amazing things about this channel for me, right? Is that I came to it, and it's like I was trying to find my next read, and I've been reading horror for so long and my favorite authors for so long. And it's like, you know what? I've been looking for the regular places to what book I should read next, you know, this list in this magazine or this list or this list. And I was just not finding things that were speaking to me. When I went to the bookstore, I'd come home and I'd read, and I'd be like, that's not, I don't know. That's not what I was looking for, really. And I heard about this thing called BookTube. So I said, well, I'll try. And I just went to YouTube, searched fantasy BookTube or sci-fi fantasy horror BookTube. And Mike is the first one that came up. So I started down this rabbit hole, and I started watching everybody, and I started getting lists, and I started listening to people that like the same things I like, right? And I would go buy these books and try them out, and I would go, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. So when I started on this journey and started finding out reads this way, I didn't know who Brandon Sanderson was. I had never heard who Robin Hobb was. I had never heard who Joe Abercrombie was. All the hugely huge popular people, I had no idea who they were. I've been completely in a different genre, or just kind of in my own bubble, or you know, there's years you go by. I'm building this, I'm doing that, I'm busy here, so I'm really not reading that much anyway. And I just why it took me so long,
going on, and you're not paying attention.
And I'm just not paying attention. But now that I'm trying to catch up, it's amazing, because I have all these amazing journeys waiting for me that I had no idea were out there.
It's so exciting, because you do have so many to venture into. Even outside of my own personal faves, there are just so many amazing books out there that, thanks to BookTube, we know about now.
Right.
Who knew?
Right.
But yes, I mean, neither of us are spring chickens. We are autumn chooks.
I'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm not in my winter just yet, but autumn, I'll give it autumn. There's a large portion of our lives, I'm sure, where we will read as in isolation. Where we read our books and people around us heard about them, but didn't really care.
And when you first became a reader, weren't you? I mean, in the same time, you found out your next book from, oh gosh, I remember I would get that little paper thing that would hit my desk at school, and I could order books
the Scholastic book thing.
There you go.
Everybody loves those.
And I would pick what I thought was good there, or you would pick based on a cover when you went to the bookstore. We didn't have. There was just, you were by yourself. You were in a bubble. And I guess I just stayed in that bubble. I have been a Luddite and not really prone to technology for a long, long time. And I just kind of stayed in that bubble.
I wouldn't say it's a technology thing, but it's just a difficult, because reading's so personal. It's very difficult to get recommendations from anywhere, really, unless people know you really well. And the people who know you really well, mostly are just like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah. And they may not be a reader. They may not know what to recommend.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of those of us who are a little bit older tend to have read a lot of the same classics. We've all read Tolkien, we've all read probably Moorcock, and we've all read, we've read the standards, the one our library had.
Yeah.
BookTube, of course, has opened those gates. I was very lucky. A bookshop I walked through had the Farseer editions with the John Howe painted covers. And they sort of flirted at me from the shelf because they were so pretty. And I was like, ooh, yeah, okay, you look pretty. I'll read you. The rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah.
But
so when was that? When was that in your life when you found that?
That was
when you
2001.
Okay.
And I read all of the 9 that were available. Well, 8 that were available to that point. And then that was that year, or slightly into the year after, I think, was the year Fool's Fate was published. And I had to wait on all of the rest. And that just got added to the reread as there was another one on the tail. But it was a different kind of fantasy, which I hadn't encountered before. Everything to that point for me had been very Tolkien-esque, very by the numbers. This was our journeying party. This was our hero. These are the stakes. And this felt very different.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when we've got things like Joe Abercrombie and we've got the Brandon Sandersons and the Mark Lawrences, the pacing is very different now in books. So Hobb feels still a little old-fashioned, and that it takes its time and it lets you sink into it slowly. But it wasn't so old-fashioned that it was 4 pages describing a forest. And it was this wonderful bridge for me to bring me into more modern books. What was it that made you decide, okay, it's time for Hobb?
Oh, gosh.
Because obviously you've got this smorgasbord of lovely books.
Yeah, I'm buried. But we all are, right?
Yeah.
I want to jump off of something you said there real quick, and then I'll come back to that. I love how you say she felt different. Yeah. Because really I'm like you, like I did when I was young, when I did read Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and T.H. White, and and it seemed like the story and the spotlight of those stories were very much the world. Certain things came first, right? Yes. And she puts her spotlight somewhere else. She puts her spotlight completely on the character for me. And lets that drive the story. Let's those human relationships and that emotionality of the connections of these characters in this world drive the story, as opposed to how the spotlight hits.
Shattering events.
Exactly, how the spotlight hits. And there are shattering events, but it still is very intimate the way she tells the story and where her focus and her spotlight is. And that just so struck me as I just loved it. I just so adored it, especially from my time in theater, where I just love to watch theater when we just get a blank stage and a light and we let actors work. And that's how these books work for me. You know, we just let our actors and our characters live and grow and work, and that speaks to us in our own core about our own lives. And even though it's this mythical setting, it's still so tangible. It's still so real. It still spoke to me in so many ways. So I love that you say that. Like it was such a breath of fresh air, because it was just the same kind of thing for me, coming from that background. How did I stumble on it? How did I finally go, okay, this has to happen? One of the amazing things, and I'm so privileged and I'm so honored, and I'm in such an unbelievable position to have a channel, and I know you feel the same way about it. What it brings to your life and enriches you. And
Absolutely.
Someone sent these to me.
Oh, what a wonderful!
And they sent them. And look, my hair was blown back the first time it happened, and every time it happens, it's unbelievable. Then I got this package in the mail, and I opened it up, and it was these 3 paperbacks. And these 3 paperbacks had been very, very well loved. They weren't, oh, I went on Amazon, I want you to read this, I picked this. And I love
these are my copies that I'm.
It blows me away whenever that happens. It blows. I'm not saying, but it came with a letter.
It's different. Yeah.
It came with a handwritten letter. And the letter said, I want to remain anonymous. I'm sharing my story with you. So just real broad strokes, I'll share just a little bit. It was a U.S. serviceman. This was his favorite story.
Oh,
and he had
I tell you, that brings me joy that this has had meaning for somebody who served. That's profound.
He carried these copies all across the Middle East with him when he served.
Oh,
and then
that's properly profound,
isn't it? And then he became a fan of the channel and he wanted to share this story with me. So he sent me his copies.
Well, thank you to whoever that was.
And again,
that's a true gift of
he asked to remain anonymous, and there was a lot more that went to his story, and I'm kind of shortening it because he did want to remain anonymous. But when I got that and I read that letter, I was like, well, this has to come to the top of the stack, right? Like I have to see. He wants to share this story, and I want to share this story, as I always do. Every time I get a book, and every time I hear about a book, I want to share the story. So I thought, well, I'll throw the first one in. And the way I usually do series is like, I'll throw the first one in. Maybe I'll come back to it 4, 5, 6 months later when I can squeeze it in. But as soon as I read that first one, I knew I have to do one a month and get through the past trilogy, because I felt a connection to this person that sent it to me. I felt a connection to Fitz. I felt a connection to the artist, because the way she sees the world and the way she was writing and the way she is experiencing the human condition through her characters, I felt a connection with her. And this is what art can do for you, right? This is what art can do for you. It makes you feel like, and I'm stealing a line from one of my favorite writers, it makes you feel like you're a drop in that huge ocean and you're connected.
There's a connection, and it speaks to something profound, and that profundity is the reason why BookTube, I think, flourishes. Because we do become very emotionally invested in these stories, and when we want to talk about it and be excited and show how much it's moved us, we want it to be heard by somebody who recognizes what that feels like. And when you said that you'd received well-read copies, and
well loved,
from somebody who had served, and I'm thinking, okay, I understand why this would speak to somebody who served. This giving over of choice and to something you trust and something you believe in, and I will defend this. It literally has given me goosebumps as I'm saying that. I understand why it would speak to somebody in that position. And you want that you don't just want to give this to your mate that sometimes reads something. You want to give it to someone who's going to really see the depths of what a story can be. And I like that you said about the spotlight being somewhere different. I've recently said to somebody, it bothers me then people say nothing happens in Robin Hood books, because lots of things happen.
So much happens.
But you have to be paying attention, because she's focused on a person whose decision impacts the things around him. And that's the plot. It's happening around him. And if you're not paying attention, well, that's on you, because it's happening.
Yeah.
The story
But
is happening around him. And that's kind of the point, is that this
isn't it?
person, this single small grain of sand on a beach has such an incredible impact on the world around him. And it becomes meaningful, because we all feel like that sometimes, that we're insignificant.
That's it.
And we have no meaning. And
yes.
what could we possibly do that's important?
But isn't that a trap when someone says, "Oh, well, nothing really happens here," and I stop and I think, here's what's happening here. Here's what's happening here. You're a passenger.
Yeah.
In your life, you're going through your life. You're the lead character in your life, and you're moving through it, and there's something going on there that you should be giving yourself way, way, way more credit and power. These little moments that happen to you every day, these little decisions that you make, sometimes as small as just to decide to be kind. These little decisions you make can leave these ripples and make these massive tails and these huge differences in all of us. And when they say nothing's happening, it's like, no, it's all happening. It's all happening in and amongst this world where the destiny is calling these characters to come up and do what they need to do in this larger, grander scheme. But also, it's also all happening. It's the same kind of quandaries, the same kind of questions, the same kind of angst I do every day about whether or not to get up and do this way or that way. This is all happening too. And that's why I'm able to connect to it and live through it. I'm completely agree with you. So much happens.
Wonderful. Okay, we've been going a little while to actually start talking about the story. I mean, we get introduced in this wonderful, very almost sparse description of walking through snow. It's cold. This little boy doesn't know what's going on. He feels protected, but not necessarily cared for. And he's handed over to strangers.
Yes.
That's a hell of a thing to happen to a child. And it's a hell of a thing to happen to a child who then gets carted across the width of the country to a completely foreign place. So as a reader, you're as blank to the story as Fitz is. You don't know these people. You don't know the world. You don't know the politics. And so we're learning with Fitz. But it was wonderful to get that very clean page at the beginning.
Yes.
Fitz doesn't know anything either.
No.
This is literally the opening scene. And there was something, and I kind of get why it speaks to you, because it feels quite theatric. This sort
Doesn't
of
it? Yes.
A doorway into the story as they're knocking on the door. And then we get words and light and things happening. But just that very quiet approach to the door.
Yeah.
It kind of had me in that moment already. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm in.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, a child being dropped off like this. I've seen this many, many times. I've seen this in many, many stories, right? This is nothing new. But the genius of her right away, the genius of her in this framing technique of, I'm going to give you just enough context of this world. So then when you turn the page and I give you that sparse setting of snow, cold, quiet, you can hear the crunch of the steps as they're moving up to the big door. I'm going to give you just enough so you can tune every one of your senses in. And then I'm going to light the actors. I'm going to light the characters. Yes. And that's what this story is. I've given you just enough setting. I've given you just enough context in these breaks that he has at the beginning of each chapter. And then I'm going to let the characters do all the heavy lifting, do all the work. And the thing that hit me immediately at the beginning, as you've described this, it just came back to me. It's like when they hand that child over, I was struck so hard by this child that is handed to strangers, and strangers taking him through into, okay, we're going to leave him with, and I don't want to jump ahead, but we're going to leave him with, the child doesn't cry.
No.
The child watches. The child is, I was sucked in immediately because I would have been screaming my lungs out, but I'm immediately,
accepted. It's like, this is happening. And
okay.
Yeah. didn't expect a question quite this early, but I'm kind of glad I have. Heidi's asked, where is Fitz's mother? Just the one scene in the first book. Why? Feels like Hobb just forgot about her. Is it all just daddy issues? Yes and no. We do actually see Fitz's mum again later in Farseer, very briefly, and a lot of people miss it. And I've mentioned this before. My family history meant that my stepfather had to adopt me when I was very little to move to New Zealand. And I didn't find out that I had a different father to my siblings until much later. I was in my teens. So it was all very highly dramatic because I'm a teenager. I was like, oh, I could walk past my father in the street and I'd never know him.
Sure.
So that was my own dialogue about how that went. So when in Royal Assassin, Fitz walks through a market and somebody's crying out with blatant yearning emotion, I was like, oh my God, that's his mum. Because that was the scene I'd envisioned for myself, not knowing a parent. And yet it's easy enough to just skip it because it's just a crazy lady in the market shouting. So Fitz's mum doesn't get forgotten. And we will come back to his memory of his mum and
that was what
the placement of it in his head. That is something that will be returned to. And because the joy of this series is Fitz continues to grow and he continues to develop. So that is something that will be brought back to.
And that's one of my major.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure. And that's one of my major. That's one of my major questions at the end of Farseer is like, not being able to picture or to have that anything. There's obviously, there's more here. There's more going on there, and I can't wait to discover in Hobb's own time of why that is. But I know that has to be coming.
And to some degree, you even get in the closing chapters of Assassin's Quest when Kestrel sort of becomes unveiled from her role as Kettle, and she tells Fitz blatantly, she was behind a wall you built, and he can't handle it. He's like,
yeah.
And yet, we started the book. He is literally being handed to strangers. So he's got some feelings about his mum he doesn't want to look at.
Right, and his mom's not there during the handing. She's left behind.
No.
Yeah,
it's his grandfather that hands him over. So in that first chapter alone, we get given a child that's carrying trauma at 6 years old.
Oh, think of the mark that leaves. Think of the mark that leaves.
Damaged.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely, sure.
And he gets treated from that point like baggage.
Yes.
He is left with the stable master. He's literally dumped with the animals.
Yeah.
You're this unimportant to this traveling party.
Yes.
That you're counted as one of the beasts that the stable master will look after. So establishing shot of how this character is going to feel is done with relatively little work on the part of the author. Very few strokes, and immediately you're like, okay, this kid's going to carry some baggage for a while.
Oh, forever, right? And that's why he's not screaming his lungs out. He's so marked and so damaged. He's almost like it's a shock, right? It's almost like a comatose shock. And then all the short-sightedness sets in. Burrich was exactly who that kid needed to be left with.
Oh,
and the short-sightedness of always the beasts of burden and just the animals will just shove. Imagine the education Fitz would have gotten anywhere else in that regard. Yeah,
absolutely. In terms of the care for a small child, it's kind of appropriate. You put him with somebody who knows how to make an animal feel safe. How do you make this small thing feel safe, look after them, and keep them healthy when we don't actually know what we're going to do, because nobody was expecting this.
Yeah.
And we then get to see his own impact when he arrives at Buckkeep Castle. And he kind of understands that the kerfuffle is about him, but he doesn't really get why. So we see it with a very naive openness that you get from a child. in the way people talk to him, in the way they treat him. And I always find it telling when I revisit those early chapters how simple they all seem to think he is.
Yes.
Because he doesn't talk much.
Yeah.
I mean, when you were reading this, obviously it was your first time. How did you equate that with, because you're a father, you know what it is to have a 6-year-old and the incessant asking of questions that children have. So this is not a normal child. How did you feel reading that? Were you able to kind of find an explanation for that, or?
I just so damaged. I mean, I just felt like he's so absolutely marked. I mean, this mark goes so deep to his very soul, right? And you understand. You've been so brave to share a little bit of your past, right? You completely understand what this means, and this mark that you would carry. That who do I belong to? How do I belong? How do I find my place in this world if I don't know where I came from and who I belong with? And how do I define myself? He's just, to me, he's in those early chapters, he's such a watcher. He's watching everyone to think about, where do I belong and how do I define myself and what type of, and to me, this is when I was a young man and my family broke up, right? I spent so much time in my early years trying to fill that space that my father had left, with coaches or teachers, or you're always trying to do that. So it was that quiet watching of his that I completely identified with in that way, because I knew exactly what he was trying to do. I knew exactly what he was trying to do to fill those holes and define himself by who he belongs to.
Yes. Which again, very early in the story, again, we're full spoilers, so you've been warned, everybody. I know Evie particularly struggled with the early chapters in Farseer. It broke her heart because literally in chapter 2, the person who he's been given to care for him gets rid of a puppy. And as a child, you believe that Burrick has done something heinous to this puppy. And this is the person they entrusted him to. What is his value that he's been given to a person who could do that? However much we know later he misunderstood, that belief was formed in him very early, that he could just as easily be gotten rid of. That's a lot.
Oh, it's so much. And that's what I mean. That's what too. And it's Derry. Oh my gosh. That's what I'm saying. When someone's saying nothing's happening, everything's happening.
So many things.
Everything's happening. We've all, as a parent, I know exactly. And what is Burge doing here? We don't know right then as a reader, right?
No.
It's unclear to us, but he's doing his best to protect this young one to where he can have a place in society, have a safe place in society, a place where he can bring something to society and be a connected piece of society. He's trying to do all in the same way that I remember so many times when Jacob was a young one, and I would in fear, reach out and grab his hand, or do something, and the look he would give to me
in them
is betrayal. How could you? Oh my God! The one person I thought would throw themselves into traffic for me has hurt me. And Fitz has no landing pad, nowhere to belong, no one to belong to. This one hulking man in this one room up above in the stable is his one possible place that he can find safety and comfort. And this happens. And it immediately I was trying to figure out why, what there's more here. What's going on? She's too good of a writer. There's motivations going on in both of these older man and younger man. There's two motivations, and as in good drama, they're diametrically opposed. That's what drama is. But I want to understand. So of course my heart broke for the puppy. Oh my God. I love dogs like everyone. But I was so drawn in on the drama of what I need. It just kept me turning pages. I can understand why a lot of people would just put that book down at that point. I
It's a
totally
bit
do understand,
confronting.
fully understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right in that whole. There's clearly a story there. So I love that immediately you're like, okay, that came out of nowhere. There's got to be a
Sure.
reason for this,
Yeah.
and that's our first clear indicator that Fitz has this dirty magic, this beast magic,
Yeah.
and we never we don't get an explanation at all in Farseer. There's not even theories in Farseer. It's just a thing that this is what it is. This is, we don't know too much about it because it's so ostracized. There's no knowledge. It's all hearsay. And we discover over the course of Farseer that it's a magic that Burix shares, and it's clearly traumatized him to the degree that he's, reacted this way to Fitz.
Yeah.
As a magic, how did you find the magic system? I mean, because like Fitz, we come to it completely innocent. We just sort of learn as we go.
Okay. Again, this is the genius in those little moments before each chapter where she gives you just enough context. And there was a few little hints and a few little things about that and the history of what's going on. But those two magic systems, oh my gosh, old man brain, the wit and the
skill.
The wit and the skill. So these are just another way of connecting. This is such this entire trilogy for me, the theme of connection, relationship, us being a people, entire, just never went away. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing to include the natural world in that as well. If you'd have only had the skill, so much of the world that is tied to us and a part of us and a vibrant mystery, beauty that's around us would not have come into the book. But because of the wit, because of this, that oftentimes is misunderstood and ostracized and maybe looked down upon and all this this is just as mysterious, just as magical, just as miraculous. And you start getting some hints at that by book 3. But I love that, having both the connections to the natural world and these creatures around us, as well as the theme of connection of a people and a community and a civilization. So I thought the two-pronged attack of that just hammered the theme home of connection so well for me. I love the magic system so much, even at the end of the book 3, when it grew and there was more to experience and learn about.
It's possibly one of the softest magic systems I've ever read. Now that I know the difference, I'm like, okay, there's
but
no
again,
rule.
I felt, and I look,
because we don't know any.
Sure, I love some hard magic systems. I love, oh wow, they really put thought into this. This is amazing. I'm really interested about this. But in this respect, I thought this, again, so personal, so real, so tangible to my everyday life. I loved that it was just a mystery. I loved that it was just connection, because I experience that all the time. I look into Pooh's eyes and I see connection. I don't understand it. I wish I knew what he was trying to say to me. And the same thing with Amy sometimes. I look into her eyes and she's telling me what she means. I wish I could understand that better. So
you're quite right, though.
I'm fine with that mystery here.
I like that it's added depth to something I think everybody in the world, most people in the world, will relate to. You meet people and you find out they're a cat person or they're a dog person. In the same way as when we meet these wit people throughout the story, some of them are dog people. They interact more easily with canines. Some people interact more easily with felines. And that always spoke very truly to me, because people do lean different ways in their preferences, and of course that's going to show in a magic of the heart, in a magic of the soul,
in the magic of the heart and of the soul. And as it goes, and as it grows and goes down the road, right, we find maybe it's a beautiful bird. Maybe it's a bear. Maybe it's, when
Yeah,
it broadens even more, it's like, oh, you're now taking the soul of nature entire that you can connect with. It's not
absolutely.
just a certain type of animal that has a connection to us as a people. No, you're taking
Mhm.
nature entire and the soul of all these different creatures that come into play, right? Just
Yeah.
beautiful.
It is beautiful. And Philip's asked a really timely question. Do we know how much Eastern religion or philosophy may have influenced Hobbes' conception of the wit and skill? I actually don't. And I know a reasonable amount about a lot of the driving forces behind the story, but I don't know about this. I do know that Robin Hobb seems to be an incredibly empathic person, and I imagine she's incredibly well read. So I'm certainly not going to discount that she's been influenced by such teachings. Because there is that profound level of understanding about the heart, the soul,
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm,
greater than us.
mm-hmm,
There's a beautiful scene in Royal Assassin when Kettricken has been trying to fit in, and she's
mm-hmm,
really not succeeding, and she withdraws back into herself.
mm-hmm,
And Fitz visits, and he interrupts her meditating, and he realizes that she has a touch of the wit because
mm-hmm.
she's sitting there just accepting her place in the world by sensing the life in the world around her. And I thought that was an exceptionally beautiful way of saying we are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
We can all make a network of the lives around us. And it was a really beautiful insight into who Kettricken was, that she could accept a place amongst everything. And I say that because Kettricken, of course, is wonderful.
Yeah.
But
Oh gosh, what an amazing
she's just
character.
delightful. But we get Fitz's childhood, and we see his very brief relationship with Nosy as he's interacting with the children of the town,
Yeah.
and they know him as New Boy, and he's
Yeah.
kept this identity separate
Mm-hmm,
without really even thinking about it,
mm-hmm,
with no intent to deceive,
mm-hmm.
simply that's just the persona he has in the town. How did that sit with you, that he kept these two sides of himself so separate?
Look again. I, I, her ability to write a young man's journey astounded me, and it shouldn't. We're all people. We all may have the same kind of journey. I bet everyone, and I think of a young man's journey because, this is. I think about my journey, right? Because I intimately know it. So when I think about a young man's journey, but I bet you experienced the same thing, Gary. I bet when
Very
you
much.
had a first day, and you moved a lot, if I
I
remember
did.
you sharing. I remember.
I
Okay,
did.
so if you had a first day of school at a new school, would
Oh,
you
I
not put
had a new identity every time, depending on what his mood
would
was
you
that
not
day.
put a mask on that you thought this
Mhm.
is going to be the most well-received mask in this room at this time at this school in this
And it
town?
formed your identity for the time I was there.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
you would maybe have to take it off when you got home and breathe a sigh of relief, or you would have to put it back on the next day. And maybe it's not quite right. So I'm going to tweak it a little bit. I'm going to tighten that
Yeah,
string a little bit if
you've
it
got to
didn't quite
bring
go
it
over
round to
well.
me slowly but surely.
This is everything he's doing when he goes out
Mhm.
into the city, and he starts playing with some other children, and he starts expanding his world, and he starts realizing his own identity. What is my own identity? Who am I going to be? What does my identity mean? Where do I fit in the world? And I'm going to do that because I'm going to have to start trading and changing and putting on masks as I go out into the world.
Yeah,
It's just complete. It's every one of our it's every one of our human journeys. It happens. Everything happens in this book. These
it really
moments,
does.
we've all had these moments. Take enough importance in your moment that you're having to realize these are huge dramatic moments when you decide what mask to wear, why to wear a
Mhm.
mask, why should you, when you can take it off, when you're safe enough to take it off.
Yeah,
These can be huge dramatic moments. And I loved them. Absolutely loved it. I totally bought it.
yeah,
There was not a moment I didn't buy about these books.
yeah, yeah. And we touched on the father figure in Burke, and
Oh,
then Fitz realizing that I can't, or believing that he can't trust Burke. There was never any doubt in my mind why Fitz wouldn't follow this mysterious male stranger up the stairs in the middle of the night, because this child is just crying out for somebody to take him under their wing.
Yes.
So when this mysterious man opens the door and he becomes part of this hidden world in the castle, that was a wonderful writing tool on the part of Robin Hobb, in that, okay, now I've got a tool to explain some politics. I've got a tool to explain some of the wider world and still leave it mysterious, because he's talking to a child.
Sure.
So we get instances where Fitz is asked to do things and never told why. As an adult watching, you're like, there's a reason
he's being trained.
We've interrupted a conversation between Regal and a noble from inland. That's been interrupted for a political reason.
Yes.
And we don't find out what it was. But it was there because the party left almost immediately after in a worse mood than I think people were hoping.
Sure.
What was that all about?
Yeah.
In context, we can look at it and go, okay, probably has something to do with the things that were mentioned a couple of chapters ago or whatever. Not really important in the story because it doesn't impact Fitz. But again, Fitz is involved in something that has an effect far outside his own sphere of influence. And Shade has access to secret. And he begins to train Fitz with how to get somebody talking.
And how to listen and how to remember. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I can't believe anyone that would question, why would you follow this weird man up the stairs? No one questions this. No one questions this, because look, let's look at and I'm not saying this isn't a great series too. I absolutely adore Harry Potter. But when that owl comes through the window, don't we all want our hero to be special? Don't we want to be special? Don't we want to be singled out? Don't we want a hand to reach out and take ours and take us into a grand adventure?
I see something in you.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And this is that moment. And it's that moment with a human touch and a human connection. It's not an invitation to a school. It's a human putting their hand out and saying, come with me. And he was so hungry for that. And there's no way you're not going to take that. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he was yearning for it on a quite a profound level. And I liked that Shade, reasonably early in the training, was very clear with Fitz what he was training him to do.
Yeah.
This is what I will teach you. This is something that you will know. Is it something worth knowing? I think so. Is it a skill that will haunt him for the rest of his life? Very probably.
Yeah.
But he's also a boy, and he's being told, we're going to trust you with some incredibly dangerous skills. There's got to be an element of everybody reading this story that doesn't wish somebody had taught us that when we were kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on. How cool is that?
Oh, absolutely.
And then we get one of my dearest characters in Patience arrives.
Lady Patience, yeah.
And Lady Patience, who is the wife of Fitz's father. And we've had in the epigraphs that she had a huge meltdown when Fitz was discovered. She wasn't coping at all. We've taken her to the country. And we've learned that she's a bit eccentric and people think she's a bit odd. Okay. And then we meet Patience. And the expectation in a lot of stories is she's going to be the evil stepmother out to get him, ruin this child who ruined her husband's life. Instead, what we get is a woman so desperately hungering for a child that she wants to claim Fitz as hers. And she's come to this place that she can't stand, full of people she can't stand, to live a life she can't stand, just to be there and stand up for him. He, of course, has been trained to question everybody's motives. He doesn't trust anybody because everybody has let him down. He wants desperately to have a mother. She wants desperately to have a child. And they never quite connect.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most poignantly beautiful relationships I think I've
Isn't it?
ever read.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
almost making that connection.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what's the word? It was foreshadowed. It was signposted hugely
Yeah.
that this eventual meeting was going to be awful, and it was,
Yeah.
because he was drunk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at that moment, when you first met Patience, I mean, what were your initial thoughts on meeting Patience?
I think, I think by then she had me firmly behind the eyes of Fitz.
Mhm.
And I was leery.
Okay.
I was leery, and you hadn't, because look, you want the best for our boy at this point. You
Oh, yes.
absolutely want the best for our boy at this point.
Mhm.
And to have, I think Birch was probably acting on his best behalf, but I'm not sure. I haven't got all the answers in at that. Shade. I think he's you're trying to find a father figure maybe this way, but he's teaching him how to be an assassin. I mean, you gotta have questions there. And then here's this person again, like you say, I'm not quite sure if she came back for him. I'm not quite sure why she came back. But it didn't take very long for me to start to realize that she was so aptly named. Lady Patience is such a perfect name for this character. And I love it's almost Shakespearean in that way, that their personalities are just missing each other.
Yes.
The miscommunication that leads to comedy and tragedy in the same book at the same beat between these two characters, as you said, they just should have connected. I think they do have their moments finally, but it's just those moments of just those misconnections over and over again. And again, such a huge thing, a huge theme of these books for me was loyalty, and for her to have the love of her husband that's passed, that brings her back. And the same for Burrich, the love for his friend that's passed, to look out for their son. There's just such a strain of loyalty all the way through the book that I found to be quite profound as well.
Absolutely. There's the capturing of a mood, of a moment, and in this instance of a character, shows in Hobb's skill here when she opens the door onto Patience's chambers, and we're seeing the room after she's been there a day.
Yeah, it doesn't take her long.
Covered in the layers of detritus of life.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something about that just felt very real, the way it was described.
Mm-hmm.
And it was effortless. This almost shambolic room was somehow described fast, efficiently, and you just got a sense of who Patience was as a person. And you also, in the way she was described, in the way she reacts to Fitz, you see how vulnerable she is to Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
And in her sort of panicked reactions to him. And I love Lacey, her handmaiden, when she says to Fitz, she just wants to be able to give you something.
Yeah.
That's what she's trying to do.
Yeah.
I love that Lacey detached, because they were such at loggerheads with each other.
Yeah.
That they needed somebody to sort of interpret for them in the moment. And she did. And Fitz then goes and he does his painting efforts, and he paints the puppy, which she then gives him. So we went from Nosy, this lovely little hound puppy, to this little terrier, this Smithy. And by this point in the books, you're like, oh, this is not going to go well.
Not going to go over. Yeah.
This is not going to go well. Fitz is trying to keep Smithy a secret. He's keeping him in his room. And now he's about to be given skill lessons. And this is daunting to us as a reader, because we haven't had any information about this. And when we're introduced to Galen as a character, we're questioned by Shade. What do you know about him? And Fitz can't really come up with a lot. And what he does come up with doesn't speak well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when we went into those lessons, I mean, how did you feel when we joined Fitz up on the tower top?
Yeah.
Where was your heart? Where was your heart?
Isn't this a beautiful illustration of when we're a young person and when we're trying to find our way and find our touchstones and find our mentors and find our family, our found family. Sometimes it doesn't go well,
No.
you know. And he was so hungry to have that. That he follows Galen further than he ever should have followed Galen, and he gave Galen far more rope than he ever should have given him because he's so hungry for that connection. And it's so amazing. You bring up all these Shade and Shade's room, how perfectly tight as a pin it is. All of his experiments, all of his things that are going on, everything has a place. Juxtapose that with Lady Patience's room.
Yeah.
Both of these souls, mentors, found family that he's coming into contact with, both have curiosity, both value education, both have so much to give to him and further him, but they're just so drastically different, which makes it so hard on a young person of how to take it, where to go, who to trust and how to take it. So beautifully illustrated. So when you have someone like Galen come along, that's like, well, I guess I'm gonna, I'll give this a shot too, because everyone else is so different.
I'll give it,
Yeah. So I kind of had an inkling about Galen. It was like, oh no, this one's not gonna, this is where she lowers the hammer. They can't all be all in on the best for him. And I didn't know it would go as far as it did, but yeah.
I mean, at this point, we've had a couple of run-ins with Fall, and it's a bit horrific that this is the first time I've mentioned him, but Fall tries this whole time to talk Fitz out of getting trained in the skill. And so much so, he offers to take care of Smithy.
Yeah.
And as this is happening, clearly politics in the keep is something's going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's just stuff niggling. Fitz has been given his first assignment, and he goes off and he does the thing, and he's feeling very grown up.
Yeah.
He's had this happening, and we then get one of the wonderful Hobb things that she does in a book where nothing happens, where we have an assassination, we have a magic information in the night, we have a midnight wild ride, we have a murder and an attempted murder, and all of these chaotic things. In the moment that, I mean, how am I? The reveal of Shade as Lady Time, the entire adventure to go and discover what was happening in Forge. It feels like a very, again, it just felt very theatrical. It was like, okay, now we're into our action sequence. I mean, that's just felt what it was. It was like, okay, it was such an immediate change of pace into, right, we're going to have this thing. And there's a surprising number of revelations in that, but they're all coming at you incredibly quickly.
Sure.
I mean, how were you feeling around it by then?
Well, you so beautifully sum it up, Derry, because as you said, he's a little bit full of himself. Not full of himself, but he's a little bit more confident at this point because he's met these mentors. He's started to define who he is as a person. So he starts to take up a little bit more space because he knows who he is. And once we start to come about in our own heads of who we are and how much space we're going to take up in this world and how comfortable we are doing that, then we have to bring the larger world into it.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what she did. It's the perfect part of this plot to bring the larger world in, because now he's learned just enough about the world and these people around him and these mentors that he's going to start to define himself and take up space. Now let's throw him out into the world and take some knocks, right? Yeah.
So we've had the Fool's input, we've had Smithy's input, we've had an attempted murder on Burke, which is where we then get Burke's realization that you've bonded to another animal, and it was that bond that has cost you with the skill, and this we're not talking to you anymore. There's all of that going on, and he's even more ostracized and more isolated than he's ever been. And Shade puts him in charge of looking after Verity, and we get the last of his father figures in taking care of this young man who's aged himself out of loyalty to the crown. And we get the forging of that beautiful friendship. And it's telling that they don't actually spend a lot of time on page together, but you very much get the sense that they have formed this connection. And we then get the revelation that Galen's done something to Fitz's mind after his beating on the tower, that he's tricked you into thinking you weren't good at this. What the heck? And so you feel outraged, and you're like, okay, now that makes sense, because that was weird. And okay, now this thing, and now Regal wants to marry a mountain queen. And again, after a big sort of nicely paced bit of build-up, we get, oh, okay, now we're all going, okay, we're doing a thing. And they head on up to the mountain. Burke's ostracizing him. He has to deal with people he doesn't like. And his mission is to kill the prince, which we then find out is all based on dodgy information. And then we finally get the Regal's he's really not a nice person. He's not just a petty older uncle. He's actually a bad guy. Did that feel like a reveal, or were you ready for that when that came?
I was ready. Now, I will say, I thought the ending of each of these three books, the acceleration comes so quickly after a pace that we have become, in my case, enamored with. I was very happy with the pace. And then the pace accelerates so quickly at the end. It was, I found myself going back and rereading some passages because it's so frenetic. It's so frantic, coming at you so quickly, which is I think speaks highly of her, because I'm in the same position as Fitz. Like, so much is coming at me so quickly. I'm having a hard time processing it. I'm having a hard time deciding. And that first meeting with Verity, isn't that just everything? Like this figure that will draw a line for his people, and no matter what it costs, he just looms so large. And I think it's just that last bit of triumvirate and a father figure that, it was just so beautiful. And I think it was Evie that asked me a couple times what my favorite part of each of the books was. Book one, I will tell you I'm sometimes I get jumbled remembering, but I'm pretty sure this was book one. Tell me if I'm wrong. When Burrich finds out pretty much what Galen's been up to and what Galen's been doing.
Oh, yes, it's book one. When he challenges him at the witness stand.
And he just takes care of
living crap out of him. Oh.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Fitz knows. It's not about that.
No.
That's
not how you teach kids. You don't beat kids.
That, to me, that was everything for me. That was when I was all in, and I totally understood who Burrich was.
Yes. That's when you realize he's a good man.
He's a good man. He's going to be able to teach this boy how to be a good man. What that means. That means on the ground level, right?
Absolutely.
Verity is in the clouds. He'll teach you how to be a good man, but he looms over all of them. Yeah. So, that moment for me, when he called out Galen and took care of business after what Galen had done to Fitz, that was just magic.
And gloriously too, Burrich says nothing. Fitz learns about it through keep gossip. He learns about it from other people. Burrich's not lording it about the place like, ha, I beat the skillmaster. He's
Doesn't matter.
No, I called him out, I did what needed doing. The story of what happened informs us about so much more, because we eventually find out Burrich's been sealed to the skill. And we find out that Galen clearly throughout that fight was trying to skill at Beric to make him stop. And no, Beric wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
And so we're given the stubbornness in Beric. And it is in Assassin's Apprentice when Beric tells Fitz the fight isn't over until you win it.
Yeah.
And we see proof of that Beric lives that. I'm just going to keep fighting until I win it. And so when Beric turns away from Fitz for using the wit, it's really quite heartbreaking. And it gives Fitz nowhere to turn to when it turns to Custard in the mountains, when Regal outs him, making him powerless, that Ketrican, she's only young.
Yeah, no, yeah.
She reacts, irrationally and impetuously. And then we find out that the prince, the brother, is actually a rather wonderful man and would have made a wonderful ally.
Absolutely.
And it all just goes to Custard because of Regal.
Again, aptly named. Aptly named, right? Yeah, completely aptly
because
named.
it's all in the trappings for Regal. It's looking and sounding the part. Whereas Verity and Chivalry are both about actions. To actually be truthful, to be chivalrous, to be a thing. To be Regal is to have the aspect.
Right. It's like I'm going to lead by example by what I am.
Yeah.
As opposed to Regal, I'll be a symbol. I'll do what's necessary.
Yeah.
No matter where it takes me. Right.
That's right.
To lead.
And I want what I want because I'm entitled. Because I have this blood that's supposedly better than yours. And Regal is one of those stories that, even though through the trilogy his particular story finishes, we're still getting informed on his backstory as the story continues.
Oh, good.
So
okay.
All of these characters gain more dimension as the books continue, because you just learn more about the history and what went on and who said what to who. I mean, we've only just reached the end of book 1 and we're a good hour in, so pick this up a bit. But, so we've got the entirely chaotic witnessed ceremony of Ketrican and Verity marrying by proxy. We get Verity skilling via Fitz, which is incredibly intimate, and I think it is the final touch on the trust that they have between them. Because in that instant, Fitz knows Verity is a good man.
Yeah.
And so does Ketrican. She's able to feel that through the skill. And so she goes from fearing this marriage to being okay about it because she's going to a good man. All great. Fitz gets really ill, takes ages to come home, and has a vision in the closing epilogue where he wakes up in Shrewd's body, in pain, old, really struggling. And he has a vision of Molly in a town
being overrun
for her life.
Yeah.
And that's the impetus for him. He has to go home, find out what happened to Molly. And we go into book 2, which
before we go to book 2, I just have
absolutely.
to say one thing. Oh my gosh. The Shakespearean use of the icon of the fool. I just was everything. Loved it.
Fool is brilliant.
Yeah.
Fool is brilliant. It's one of my favorite pieces of trivia. Fool was only ever supposed to deliver one line, and that was it. We were never to see him again. For him to then go on and form the backbone of the series is kind of outrageous. But he was only ever supposed to deliver the fat Fitz of Feist Fitz, and never be seen again.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
From a creative point of view, to know that character went, no.
Yeah, no. That's
I
not
have
the
more.
story. That's not the story you're telling. Yeah.
Yeah, you think it is, but just wait.
No. Yeah.
So and then
but book 2, hit me.
But we've got Fitz now. He's a young adult. He's got a place in court. He knows who he is. He knows what his job is. And so we get Royal Assassin, where he's in the keep and we're fighting an enemy and you're gathering intelligence and everything is happening in the castle. We get betrayals and we get action and we get more betrayals and we get murder and mayhem. And we get some lovely touching moments. And we meet Night Eyes. For a book series that is as beloved as this, where I think everybody who hears of the series also hears of Night Eyes.
Yeah.
How was it taking that long to meet him?
You know what? I came in blissfully blind about it.
Nice.
I had never, I believe I heard on a couple comments like, oh, one best animal companions ever. So I thought when Nosy first shows up, I was like, oh,
Sister.
so my heart was completely broken then. And then, you know, so when Night Eye showed up, I got to meet him without any preconceived notions at all. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing. And, you know, all of this going on in the keep too. I mean, let's not lose sight of what's going in the wider world of the Outlanders and the Forged, and how this just tension is getting ratcheted higher and higher and higher and higher, of this doom that is just overarching this entire civilization, right?
Because it feels like doom.
It does. And what an amazing threat to go along with our theme of connection and relationship, when
very much so. The lack of it, when the villainy is removed,
is illustrated by the removal of all that. Your loved ones can be taken and then returned to you bereft.
And that's the threat. You pay us and we'll kill them.
Yeah. Oh,
how does that work in a hostage situation? And then they get shown.
Yeah.
You don't
and stakes like that. How can you say nothing's happening? Stakes like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's horrific. And for me, it's always been about memory forming self. Without memory, without your own life experiences, you are nothing. You are simply a living entity, full stop. You're not a person until you've got memory, you've got connections, you've developed relationships. And so this threat of the Forged is not only this zombie horde, but it's a zombie horde that you used to love.
It is, right?
And you have to put them out, you know. It's awful.
It's awful.
There's clearly something else going on in the background. There are little hints of Pale Woman, the White Ship, Fogs of the Mind. There's clearly things happening that we don't ever get. I mean, this is not a spoiler to anyone who's read Farseer. It doesn't get explained.
Not entirely. No, certainly not.
It just, the enemy is fought and eventually they win.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But what was that all about?
Right. But I loved the moment of when they're taken and forged and returned.
Yes. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific.
It's horrific, and they're animalistic.
Yeah.
And this just goes to illustrate the miraculous nature of the skill. If you're truly in touch with the natural world, this is an illustration, an example of what how vibrant and beautiful that natural world is.
Absolutely.
So it just, for me, it was like it was going hand in hand with showing it's like, no, what they're thinking about this is not as enlightened as they want to be.
No, because you're also shown that the Forged ones seem to be seeking this companionship. They're seeking something. They seem to be drawn to the key.
Yeah.
They seem to be drawn to the skill usage. So it's clearly an absence in themselves that they can feel.
Yeah.
Which again adds to that tragedy of it.
Yes, it's almost like moths to the light. They just can't, it's just a calling they can't help. They can't understand. They can't help themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to quickly answer this one because it's really covered in the first book. Who murdered chivalry? Anith has left the chat. Chivalry is absolutely killed by nefarious means. The explanation given out is that he died in a horse accident.
Right.
Everybody who knows chivalry knows not how he goes out, which means somebody had a hand in it. We are told in the instance when Shade and Fitz talk about it that Shade didn't know a call had gone out to kill chivalry, which meant somebody else was.
Mm-hmm.
The only other person in the castle with as much power to instigate that was the Queen. And Queen Desire will have been the one that did it. But it means that there's another assassin somewhere. And we don't know at this stage who that is. It's inferred through the storyline that it's somebody who has been skill implanted by Galen and or Regal to get chivalry out of the line of succession.
Right.
Because that's been Regal's plan all along.
Right.
And it's what puts fear of Queen Desire in Fitz. She's always hated it. We never see her on page. And we are told in the story that Regal firmly believes that Fitz killed his mother. Fitz didn't kill his mother, but Regal believes that, which kind of enforces why he treats Fitz the way he does. He killed my mother.
Yeah.
You know, that misconception. But her addictive nature had her taking a lot of drugs that didn't work well with each other, and she basically topped herself with mismanaging her drugs. That's what happened to Queen Desire, who killed chivalry. So I hope that helps, Heidi. But, you know, when we come back to Royal Assassin and we've got the Forged Ones, which are just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We see Regal leave Ketrican out in the snow with a pretty good idea she's going to get attacked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm with Fitz on that. I'm like, you know, this guy's the bad guy. Why are you going riding with him?
Yeah.
And then we get the tragedy of what her marriage to Verity is. And we're like, oh, okay, that's heartbreaking. We get Ketrican kind of going, okay, well, it was never about love. This was always about the peoples.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have to be here. I still got to show up. And she shows up on the morning of the Queen's Hunt when when the people have decided the Queen got attacked by Forged Ones. We're going to go out and kill them. Rah, rah, rah. We're going to be, you know, this mob. And she calms everybody down and she lays it out. These are our people. Yeah. They have already been taken from us. All we're doing is putting them to rest. And she takes that fire out of everybody. She makes certain they're all aware. No, we're not killing. We're not hunting these people.
Yeah.
We're stopping their pain. And the power that she takes hold of in that moment. Oh, you know, as a theatre person, you must have been reading that thinking, how would I like that? How would I, you know, I mean, surely.
It's that St. Crispin speech from Henry V, right? It's that it's that moment, you know. And what an amazing, informative thing about this character that she comes from a reality and a family that sees leadership as thinking of yourself as sacrifice.
Yeah,
I don't think you have to know anything else about Ketrican, but that.
Yeah, because she lives it. She really does. That.
Everything she does is in service to that ideal that I am a sacrifice to my people because I am in a leadership. I am blessed with a leadership position. Yeah. So wow, I what a scene! What an amazing scene!
Yeah, and it's really powerful. And there's a beautiful moment sort of outside the doors of the hall as Shade's watching and Verity's watching, and you see the light and Shade like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I've got somebody here that can be, you know, we can lead effectively with this woman. And you see Regal going, she's taking your power. And Verity like, wow, she's pointing out that I should have done it already. And instantly his awareness that, okay.
For me, it's like, the book
and he smacks his brother. Oh, love it. Oh.
Yeah, but book 2, it's there's some wonderful love stories here.
Oh my God.
For book 2. That's what, because Ketrican and Verity, they becomes quite a beautiful love story once they learn who each other is. Yes, exactly. When they figure out who each other is, and then young love as Fitz is learning Molly and spending his time in town, and these feelings are awakening. Then you know when those feelings awaken for the first time, it's like
it's obsessive.
Oh my gosh, you just want to eat that person whole. You can't spend a moment or a second away from them without just
and you're thinking about them constantly.
Yes. And I thought all of that was captured so well. Both stages of love in service to a people,
Yes.
love, an adult love, as we have to get to know each other and form a bond and a communication and a relationship. And this just this addictive love when the first time you see it, you know.
And there's a wonderful, one of the chapter epigraphs is Fitz reflecting on him wanting to keep a shirt that smelled of her and putting it in her thing and wondering if it was foolishness or wisdom. And looking back as an older person, clearly as he's writing these epigraphs, recognizing it as wisdom.
Yeah.
That was the right thing to do, because
yeah.
that was that precious thing.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because it is this impetuosity of youth, isn't it? It's the grand gestures. I'm literally going to throw myself off the battlements and climb in your window. You know?
Right. And
because that's what it does to you when you're a teen.
But there is nothing more important, right?
No.
There's nothing more important.
There really isn't.
We can all be in danger of the forged. We can all, civilization is on fire, but there's still nothing more important than that connection in that moment with that person at that time.
Yep.
It's just so beautifully done.
It really is. And it's also jarring because at this point, Night Eyes is part of Fitz's life. And one of the reasons that I will die on the hill that Night Eyes is the best animal companion ever in literature is he has his own personality.
Oh, yeah.
And he brings his own take to things. So when he talks to Fitz about Molly, it's in a very different way than you anticipate, because he's like, okay, well, now she's ours and we have to look after her. She's part of the pack. That's just how this goes. I am as responsible for her as you are. And Fitz is like, it's got nothing to do with you. And that completely differing sense of priority for the two of them and how they have to navigate that.
Yeah.
You know, because they're bonded. They have to navigate this.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was wonderfully well done. Because, I mean, it's not like we've got a real life example of this. You know?
Yeah.
That's had to come fully fleshed out of Hobb's brain. Oh.
But I think, and I not to sound like a total stalker, but I do now follow Robin Hobb on Instagram, and all of the things she posts is she lives in nature. She lives in a gorgeous setting. And for her to write something where the animal companion has his own motivations and wants and desires and personality that would take up space in this world, along with their companion that happens to be human, it makes total sense when you look at what's important to her in these pictures she's posting, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes across very clearly. All of the animals that we encounter have their own thoughts and have a different take on what's happening and how they want it to go. And Night Eyes very much has this. And even as the politics of the situation is becoming more and more intense, Night Eyes keeps saying to Fitz, just leave.
Yeah.
We can just leave.
We can just you and me.
We could just go away.
Yeah.
We don't have to put up with this. We could just leave. And Fitz he's been so indoctrinated almost with this family loyalty. He can't escape. He doesn't feel he has the right to just leave.
Right.
And you believe it. You know, we've grown up now with Fitz. We can see why he doesn't just leave.
Sure. But there's that thing, right? There's that thing, loyalty.
Yeah.
And there's so many layers of it. He's a king's man.
Yeah.
His three father figures at this point would do anything for this kingdom and have time and time again. And now he has this love. He there's just no way he can walk away. And it's almost it's such a beautiful, you know, like that Rudyard Kipling Mowgli moment at the end. It's like, go, no, stay. And it's just that pull. It makes perfect intellectual sense to remove yourself from that much danger. But this theme of loyalty, I just found it so moving because so much of that, and just growing up, I heard my father and all these, every man older than me that you spend more than 3 minutes around are like, well, grow up to be a good man, be a good man. Meet my friend, he's a good man.
That's important.
I don't know what that means. I don't know, you know, I spent my
Yeah.
life trying to figure out what that means. And Fitz is too. And
Yeah.
loyalty is such a base part of that.
Mhm. It
That
is. And men he respects.
he can't walk away. He can't
He
walk
can't
away.
walk away.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way. He can't. He respects these men. He cares for these men. And he wants to hold what they hold dear together, which is this kingdom. It's the keep.
Yeah.
And of course, as the story progresses, Regal's tearing this thing down from the roots. He's
Oh.
selling off the prime livestock. He's allocating guards every which way.
Yeah.
And so we get to the point where the dukes show up and they're like, we're not going to crown you.
Yeah.
You've told us that our prince who's gone on a quest to save us, and you're telling us he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And now you want to be king in waiting.
Mm-hmm.
We get our permission to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to give it until you answer some questions. And Regal is so enraged by this.
Yeah.
And as a reader, you're like, how are we going to fix this? We've got to get news that Verity's okay, or we've got to have something come up that's going to prove this wrong. Something will fix this.
Mm-hmm.
We get the dukes offer it pretty much to Fitz and go, look, hey, we think she's pregnant. You can be warden for the kid.
Right.
You know, it would in essence give you the crown, which
you've
only been told your whole life not to accept.
Right.
But take it. We'll give it to you.
But here's
and
that.
We're like, oh, that would solve so many problems, Fitz. But oh no, that's so bad.
But here's that moment in that theme of loyalty, right? Like loyalty, Regal expects it to take it. He expects, it can only be given. It can only be given.
And there's that marvelous thing when they give it.
Yes.
Literally, they're like, we give you our respect. We will back you. And it comes at a moment as everything that he holds dear is about to be ripped out from under him.
Yeah.
When Regal goes, no, he's witted. He killed the king.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And then we get that absolute heart-rending ending.
Literally torturous scene. Yeah.
And that's just it. He's literally tortured to death.
Yeah.
What does that do to a man?
Yeah.
And a lot of fantasy stories would have this happen. And however we got him back, however he would now be fine. This haunts Fitz. And will continue to haunt Fitz. What happened?
And he was haunted before. He was haunted by the end of book 1.
And he already has this injury and pain and fear.
Yeah.
And now he's been literally beaten.
Yeah.
To death.
Yeah.
He's had in those final moments, patience has come to him. And I can't even say the words without crying. And Burke comes to him and shouts awful words at him as he's giving him a way to top himself.
Yeah.
And Fitz is so beaten down, he doesn't see beyond it.
Yeah.
And so then Burke, over the instincts of a lifetime, communicates with Night Eyes to try to get to Fitz.
Yeah.
We think we can get you out. And eventually, Fitz is just so broken. He's just like, I'm just giving up.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that
doesn't happen in fantasy stories.
Isn't that so humane? Haven't we all been at moments? And not tortured like that, but we all feel like we have
too much.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much. But she does such an amazing job, Derry, from page 1, book 1, to scar this man.
Yeah.
And let him pay the tab for being scarred over and over. The beginning as he's left, scarred to the base of his soul. The beginning as he's poisoned at the beginning of book 1, and he's never going to be the same after that. And there's a toll paid. There's a toll paid for every time he decides to take a life. That comes back to start to add up and haunt him. Yeah. All these moral decisions that he makes, all of these mentors he chooses or doesn't choose, start to leave scars.
To his burden.
And as you said, it's those memories that build up who we are. And she does this amazing job of calculating each one of those scars, tallying each one of those making him pay the tab for those.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we've been on the same journey, so we're just so we're so invested.
I was beside myself the first time
Yeah.
I read those scenes, John. I was absolutely I mean, I still can't even relate the scene I want to, because I will cry.
Yeah.
And
But why will you cry?
that's still
Because it's
highly
so
emotional.
human being. Something's happened to you. You have
Yeah.
something in you that speaks so deeply.
Yeah.
That's why. And that's the power of story and art, because it can take you to that place. Maybe you can never look at in the light of day because it's your own pain, but now you can look at it through this mirror.
Oh, and the catharsis of it is unimaginable, and it doesn't reduce. And I think that's one of the reasons why I so readily reread. That it never loses its impact.
Yeah.
Which is unusual. I mean, I reread a lot of stuff, and quite often those emotional impact moments don't hit the same, because you know it's coming, and you know what it's like. Okay, yeah, whatever. I know this is coming. Not the case with Hobb.
Yeah.
If anything, I cry longer because I know it's coming. So I start crying before the thing happens, because I know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the sense that Fitz gets at the end of Royal Assassin, where he literally is like, I can literally do no more.
Yeah.
I have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
I'm going to close my eyes.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What a way to go into book 3.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, he died. But you get the very brief epigraph when you get the moment of him being able to watch his body get unearthed.
Yeah.
As they try and call him back to his body.
Yeah.
You're like,
but what an amazing birthing scene with 2 of his fathers there to pull him from the womb of the earth.
Exactly. Right? And to take his soul from his soulmate. To bring him back to his body. And one of the most wonderful lines.
Birch growing here, so much of birch growing here too, to rely on the skill, to rely on the miracles of the natural world to be able to save the son and rebirth him from the earth itself. Right?
And we get him calling him son.
This is Roman. If there was myths, this would go all the way back. Yeah.
And it would be godlike. We would be talking, Godhead entities here.
Absolutely.
Because we are being reborn from the earth, and we are being brought into this family in a really profound way, that you have given your life for this land.
Right.
You are now connected. We have brought you forth from it.
Right.
And so all of these very symbolic, that speak to you without you realizing, connections that you read, and you're in it. You're like, I'm here. I'm in.
Yeah. And by book 3, we learn he's obtaining, I mean, not the level of a deity, but he's obtaining this chosen one,
Absolutely. He's starting to level up, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
He's got better access to his gifts to some degree. And I love Heidi here just saying, the first half of book 3 is her favorite.
Yeah.
A lot of people struggle with book 3, because it starts off with a hiss and a roar, because we get his reincarnation into life, and it's so incredibly well done.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing cheap about that every moment of that was earned.
Yes, absolutely.
So dramatic and so emotional. And then we get a long space with just questing. We're walking. We're walking. We're walking.
We're on the road. We're walking.
And I think a lot of modern readers really struggle with that.
You know what? And I can
a lot happens.
And I can see that. Right? You have a rebirth.
Yeah.
And in this rebirth, as you've given yourself up and you've been reborn, you're an accepting of your new power, right? And the fool has been telling him, I've come to you because you're the fulcrum that this whole thing moves on. If we're to have a future as a planet at all, it's you, right? So he is very important after this rebirth. right? He is, so now as a young man,
He's
had
free agents
young
now
love
too.
in book 2, right? Yeah. Young love in book 2. He's moved on from that. He's been reborn into his power as a young man, powerful in the world. What's the first thing he does?
But
What's
also,
the first thing he does?
who now has no connections.
No connections.
They have ultimately forged him from his life, but left him with his memories.
Yeah.
And there's a cruelty in it that Fitz very much feels. And he's like, I'm a young man and I have nothing left to hang on to. I'm going to get the one who did it.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
But isn't that
like,
so for storytelling, completely primal, goes back to the Greeks. It's so Oedipal. I have to remove myself from my father figures to be my own man. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go on this vengeance fueled.
And it really is. He has no plan beyond, I'm going to get him.
And it ends about the way you'd think it would end,
as badly as you accept.
How many of us do that? I remember exactly. I threw myself in a car with no air conditioning and drove across the desert to LA to be an actor. How stupid was I? How did that end? It's not gonna, none of these things are going to end well.
Yeah. And how many of your mentors gave you the skills to do that and taught you everything you needed to know to do that, and then told you, if you do this on your own, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And you did it anyway.
But hey, I'm me. This, but
we all
and then what happens?
I know enough now. I can do it on my own. And you go out there and you go, I don't know enough.
I don't know.
Here on my own.
I'm an idiot. So you take your knocks, you run up against the wall, and then you start to become the man you're going to be from taking those knocks. And that lesson is hard, and that lesson is arduous, and that lesson is long, and that lesson takes time. So that walk is all about that.
Yeah, he has to find out. He has to find out who he is. He has to find out what his own driving motivations are.
Yeah.
He has to find out what are the things that he cares about, not what Verity cares about, not what Boric cares about, not what anybody else cares about. What are his priorities?
Right.
And it's
And I had a hard
old-fashioned quest.
I remember I was in that point and I was struggling a little bit with pace. And then I really had to stop and tell myself, and so many of my mentors told me, bring yourself to the art open to where the art can be what the art is. It's not the story you want to tell. It's the story being told you.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, and as soon as I started to realize, oh, this was me. I went through this. It took a long time to figure this out. He's got to walk on these bricks and know, no, I'm better off on the dirt. He's got to, he's got to heal after all of this idiocy of his young years. Can't be quick. It can't be easy.
No.
It has to be long. Yeah, no.
Life skills, life lessons. Anyone who has lived away from home on their own longer than 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
With a price.
Yeah.
And everything you learn is hard.
Yes.
And when you learn them, eventually you don't forget.
Right.
And you see him, he loses Night Eyes because Night Eyes is his own person. And Night Eyes has to know something. So Night Eyes has to go and find out for himself.
But doesn't Night Eyes has to go on the same journey Fitz did, right?
He has to find out who he is.
Right. Didn't Fitz say, no, me and Molly are me and Molly. She's not Pack. Yeah. It's not, you don't get to be a voyeur. This is for me. And then Night Eyes had to have the same trip. He had to have the same journey because
I love that Night Eyes just said, no, I'm going.
Yeah. I'm just as much an entity with agency as
I'm allowed.
I have to learn my own lessons. Yeah.
And he does. And it leaves Fitz feeling very vulnerable. Like far more so than at almost any other point. Even at death's door, even dead, he had Night Eyes.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't. So
without him, he would have been dead. Yeah.
Literally. I mean, he's as vulnerable now as he has ever been, in that he is aware of the risks that he's taking, that as a small child, he wouldn't have been. The vulnerability in him is overwhelming. And he has to go and engage with people. He has to go. And he meets a couple of young men in a town who feel like they're going to bully him. Like, oh, look at you, you're covered in rags. And you see his initial rage. that comes of, how dare you? I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I could take you. And that voice within him that's part Night Eyes and part Verity and part Burrich going, yeah, they can only be that because we're the wolves at the door.
Yeah.
And you see the moment that Fitz is like, okay, I have now found my motivation.
Yeah.
That is who I am. You know, this really simple interaction. But like any old-fashioned quest, it's those interactions that teach the person questing the things they need to succeed. You know, the oldest fairy tales, the oldest fables.
Absolutely.
You know, you're nice to the animal comes back and saves you in the last thing. You treat somebody with kindness, they've got the information you need to succeed. The people he interacts with along that journey give him the tools he needs to complete his journey.
Yeah.
And figuring out that protecting these people is so key to him, that it is in his blood, that blood does tell, anchors him in a way that he'd been lacking until that point.
And these same mentors he pushed aside to be his own man, it's their voice.
That's right.
Their voice that teaches them that. And that lesson of, as far as Night Eyes goes, that lesson, that time and true lesson of if you love something, let it go.
You have to
let it be free, right? And it will, if it loves you, it will
come back.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of the world in Assassin's Quest where we really haven't until that point. Yes, we traveled to the mountain, but it was about the destination. It wasn't the journey. Assassin's Quest is very much the journey.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting dreams and insights into what's happening around the rest of the world, which is a writing device that's just marvelous. Like, hello, the skill, what a gift.
Right? She set that up so she could just, forget about
we just need to check in on some people.
Right? You can be an omniscient narrator and still never leave the confines of your main protagonist that you're so involved with. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
It is. It really is. And she's able to give you this information in a way that impacts your main character, who isn't there, can't be there, has no way of seeing this thing, except for this magic that she's given him.
Yeah.
And then what he sees is heartbreaking. He loses his love. He watches her grieve him as dead. He watches his father figure grieve him as dead. He watches them comfort each other and look after his child.
Yeah.
These are heartbreaking scenes. And yet completely believable. These are two people who loved him, who centered their lives around him, who now have a child to look after, who embodies him. Of course they're going to come together. Of course that shared trauma is going to bring them together. Molly has father issue figures out the wazoo.
Oh, yeah.
Eric needs somebody who loves him for him. There's so many things going on there.
Yeah, but don't you kind of
can only watch?
Don't you kind of root for it? Even Fitz, I feel you kind of root for it, but because Birch is such a good man and Molly deserves a good man, and I think by the end,
But how shocked Fitz was that she was pregnant. I'm like, oh my God, Fitz, you're so dirty.
I'm sure you remember, because I will never forget the moment when you learned what the first was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was just so poignant and beautiful for me in this book. It's like, okay, book 3, he learns what that first love was.
Yeah.
And now that first love can be a true love for Burrich. It was never going to be that for Fitz, and he's learned that, right? He had to learn that.
He did have to learn that. And I think what he also had to learn in that was he was never honest with Molly.
No.
He never allowed her into his life the way Burrich has welcomed her into his. So it was always an unbalanced relationship. It was always going to be doomed to some degree.
Yeah.
And these dreams, these visions, this viewpoint into their lives kind of points out to Fitz, you were lacking.
Yeah.
You dropped the ball here.
I do think his motivations were pure. I think he was trying to protect her. Yeah, but I mean, and I do understand.
Young man, you only know what you know, and he screwed up.
But I hear a lot as far as Fitz goes. Oh, I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he's such an idiot. I can't believe he made that decision. And I guess when I was a young man, I was a real idiot because I bought every one of them. You know, I understood every one of them.
But we were idiots as teenagers.
Yeah,
Everybody's an idiot when they're teenagers. If Fitz didn't make dumb decisions, he wouldn't feel real.
Yeah.
You know, and Hobb has said this in interviews. You know, he's his own character. He makes decisions that she rolls her eyes at him because he's now added, 400 pages to the book because he's an idiot. But she can't change his mind. That's who Fitz is. That he's going to make bad decisions. Because all of us make bad decisions when we're ill-informed, misinformed, uninformed.
Yeah. Unimaginative.
All of those things.
Yeah.
When he has the wrong information or has none.
Yeah.
Whatever he's used to make his decision in the moment, that's the decision you make.
Yeah.
Only to later find out that, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I would have done something different if I'd known that.
Yeah. But when you're young, you rarely think that. When you're young, you think you got it all wired. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know everything when you're young.
Yeah. Or at least I did anyway, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I was pretty onto it too. But I wish I could be here again sometimes. But Fitz has that very rare gift or curse, I'm sure he feels, where he can look in and go, I got that wrong. If I'd done it right, I could have that. Because this is what Boric is giving her.
Right.
And look at her flourish. Look at her feel safe.
Yeah.
Look at her be fucking powerful defending my baby.
Yeah. Yeah. When she comes back into that cabin.
Please.
Come on. Oh.
That's a moment.
That is a moment. Love that moment.
In fact, a great bitch.
Yeah.
Good
absolutely.
She's marvelous. And it's that insight into her world kind of keeps Fitz going.
Yeah.
Because he still loves her. He still adores her. And he knows he fucked it up. But he can't let go of these dreams. He's like, but I still... And he loves Boric. That's kind of his dad.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's family. And while he desperately wants to be looking for his daughter, who heart-rendingly is called Nettle, the herb Molly loves, but gives her such pain.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah.
There's the pathos in it. That again, it's very Shakespearean. It's this.
Oh, it's so Shakespearean.
It heartens him at the same time as it breaks his heart.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to read. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. But it gives him such texture. He's so he gives him such texture, right? It gives him so much to love, and it costs him so much to love it, and he wears every scar from getting to where it's just beautiful.
He really does. And then where are we? Probably a third of the way in, and he finally gets his chance.
You're on the road. Yeah. You start having
gets his chance to have a go at Regal.
Yeah.
He's made it to Tradeford. And we get another insight into Regal here, because this isn't a defensive castle. This is a beautiful palace. This is a place of comfort and of beauty and of music and talent. And it's all of these beautiful things that can only exist if there's a Thod Great Castle at the beginning of the river. But it's this soft place that Regal spent half his life in, being told, you have better royal blood than those ones who live in the rugged castle.
Right. By desire.
Again, it's that insight into Regal. He genuinely believes Fitz is trying to ruin his life.
Yeah.
Even though Fitz is looking at this like, wow, how amazing would it have been to live here?
Yeah.
And then we get the creeping horror that is the coterie who remain, who Fitz has managed to be reasonably unhindered by to this point. And we realize how insidious they are and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
In terms of completely deluding Fitz, completely turning him ass about face. And he only through the most unimaginable luck gets out of there with his life.
Yeah. Probably shouldn't have. Really shouldn't have. Yeah.
He really shouldn't have. But his own faith that he had pretty much killed himself or saved him because they're like, we don't have to chase him right this second because he's just poisoned himself. We'll find him in a minute. And that wasn't the case at all. But it left him with even less. Now he has less things to take him on his journey. He has less equipment, less everything. He still has no night eyes. He's like, oh,
yeah.
And I've just failed at that. Meh.
Yeah.
And he has to completely sort of ask about face, what am I going to do now? And we get Verity's come to me.
Mm-hmm.
On the night he discovers he's a father. So he's decided he's going to go home. He's going to go and show Molly he's alive. And Verity's skill message is so powerful. He cannot fight it. Come to me. He's literally being torn in two directions. I go to the woman I love and the child that she's just born me, or do I follow this hook that's in me and go to the mountains to my king? And the skill command wins.
Mm-hmm.
He's also now being obviously chased by the coterie. He's now being hunted.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets quite exciting for a bit there. When he meets with some smugglers, and then they betray him, and then we get prisoner, and then there's a fire in the prison camp, and it's all very, again, Hobb does this thing where it all of a sudden gets really exciting. And then you escape the moment. Oh, everybody comes down.
Yeah.
Okay, we lived through that moment.
And then you walk.
And then we're going to walk.
And then we're going to walk.
Some snow.
Yeah.
We're going to walk in some snow. We're going to walk in some snow. We're going to walk in some snow. And we're nearly going to die. Oh! And that suddenness of violence, I kind of like.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Come out of nowhere. Because I imagine that's kind of how it would go.
Well, I love the unexpectedness.
No to this movie, to these books.
I love the unexpectedness.
Something's coming.
Sure.
You just in the snow, plodding along. Suddenly, your heart's in your throat because, oh my God, there's a tracking party right there, and did they see us? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that's the way violence would be, unexpected like that. And I love the way you bring up the coterie, and they've been manipulated too.
Oh yes, they genuinely have no choice. They are as much victims,
absolutely,
as anybody else in this.
Just in a way, Regal being raised by desire, being raised his whole life to feel like this is the existence you deserve. Anything else is a failure. This is where you belong. This is your station. This is what you deserve.
Anyone who doesn't give you this is wrong.
Right. And what an entitled person that's going to be.
It's going to make you. It's going to make you believe that this completely blameless child has it in for you.
Yeah.
That because everything that happens around this child affects you in a negative way.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's the child's fault.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Not circumstances. Not life.
Not yourself. Not your own decisions. Because you put a lot of this in motion yourself.
He did. And again, more story later gives you more reasons for some of it.
I can't. You're getting me excited for that, Derek.
There's and that's the wonderful, wonderful depth with these books, and why I encourage rereading at least once, because the joy that you're getting now with this first read, with the story that you're getting, when you finish the story, you're going to get as much joy in reading a new story from an author that you've just discovered that you love by reading it again.
Yeah.
Because it's a new story.
I don't doubt that
when you come back with all the information. But he gets attacked in the snow. He's got an arrow in his back that's going to kill him.
Oh yeah.
To the point where Night Eyes has got to the point where he's like, you have to eat something. Do you want what I've just eaten? And you're like, oh
yeah.
Okay, things are pretty bad when your wolf
that's your
that.
Yeah.
You're like, oh. And then you feel Night Eyes' worry and panic. He's like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know. I'm not a person, but he needs somebody with hands to get this out of him. And he brings Fitz to a place. At this point, we don't know. And wonder of wonders, we've made it to Jampe, and we've rediscovered the Fool and Ketrican.
Yeah.
At this point, we don't know their story, but we get the most heart-rending reunion. It's so quiet and it's so calm when they recognize each other. When Fitz wakes up, he's somewhere warm, he's safe, there's a fire, and the fool is sitting in front of the fire, and they recognize each other. One of the quietest reunions ever. And I was sat there.
Oh, it's just lovely, isn't it?
Just bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
Because Fool turns around and said, even though I held you in my arms, I didn't know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite quotes from the series because it speaks to how missing Fitz was from his body.
Yeah.
That this person who loves him profoundly didn't even feel his presence.
Yeah.
Even though he was in his arms. Oh.
And the miles the fool has traveled because he looks different. And
he's gained a bit of color.
Yeah.
A bit mysterious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he has a story of his own to tell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, of what's happened in the interim, which again, heartbreaking. We get all of the emotions and the angst, because Fitz is still a young man, of Ketrican's here, and she wants to know, is my husband alive? Because I've grieved him as dead.
Yeah.
And that grieving him as dead has cost me my child. She's completely different. She's broken. She's cold. She's given up. So to be told, your husband's actually alive, it kindles something in her.
Yeah.
And we come back to that moment where she was the queen at the Queen's Hunt of, okay, I now have a reason.
Right.
And you see her gather herself.
And you see how much this love has grown, right? This love story. You see how much this love has grown.
And it's really solid. Like it's rooted deep in who they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And the heartbreak for Fitz that they've discovered he has a child, that her name has been written down.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't have it, if Ketrican can't have a child, his child is the heir to
this
the throne.
This was just
And,
heartbreaking to me. Yeah, this was heartbreaking to
I
me.
felt for Fitz. I really did. I was like, oh, darling.
Because this is that crux of where is his loyalty going to be? Like, he can't give up his child. He's been put through the ringer so many times.
It's literally cost him his life.
Yes. Yeah. He's given everything. And now he's going to have to give this.
Yeah.
Like, this is just not,
this is
not possible. Yeah. Yeah.
Too much. And yet you can see it from Ketrican's point of view.
You can see you
can't take the facts of her being away.
Yeah.
She is who she is.
Yeah.
She has a place in the bloodline. That's who she is.
Right.
So from Ketrican, you're like, okay, for Nettle to be brought in as an heir means she now has no chance of a child of her own. And so you're like, oh my God, that's heartbreaking. You're like, she doesn't want to have to do this. She doesn't want that to be something that she has to live with. But she has to make Fitz see.
But she's sacrificed.
This is how it has to go.
She'll do anything for the larger world, right? She's sacrificed. And and up to this point, Fitz has also done that. And his mentors that have molded him has done that. Yeah. So is he going to do this? This was just gut-wrenching to me.
It really was. But it's also, again, it's heartening and heartbreaking because this is his line. Mm-hmm. This is his line in the sand. This and no further. Mm-hmm. I've literally given you my life.
Yeah.
You do not get my child.
Yeah.
Whatever bargain I have to make, you don't get to take my child. And they still turn around and say, but it's who she is.
Yeah, we're going to take her anyway.
We can't change that.
Yeah.
And
it may be the safest thing for her. Like,
exactly.
Seriously, it may be the same. Yeah.
You know? So you can see both sides of this heart-rending situation.
Yeah.
And you understand why Ketrican says, okay, I get it if you don't want to help me now. And the shock when Fitz goes, oh, I'm still going.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I expected nothing else. I wasn't shocked at all there. I knew he was going to go.
Ketrican's shock. Like, you understand, because you're like, okay, I accept that rationally, Fitz probably shouldn't help her from that point on.
Oh yeah,
But we know
absolutely.
Fitz. We
Yeah,
know the pull he's being forced. And so, yeah, go. Oh, I'm still going.
yeah. But every decision he's made up until then would tell you that he's going to go.
Yeah,
You know,
you
even if he
can't every
wasn't
decision.
even if he
Yeah,
wasn't being pulled by Verity, he
yeah,
was going to decide. I'll keep giving of
yeah,
myself for the greater good. It's this line I'll draw.
yeah.
There's no question I won't go and help you.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't the bargain on the table.
No,
know.
yeah.
And she didn't grasp that until he had to state, no, I'm still going.
Yeah.
And I think that affected Ketrican a little more than she realized, because I don't think until that point that she recognized that same level of sacrifice
Yeah.
as Verity did, because a lot of what Fitz went through she didn't know
Yeah.
until after this, when she has to tell her his story, which does affect her quite profoundly.
Oh yeah.
Actually.
Oh yeah. Sure.
But again, we come back again to agency and community ties, in that when they do leave Jambe, they do it because there's an attacking force coming, and she can't draw on any resources. She just has to pick up and go, and whoever is coming, come. Whatever we've got together, we're taking. And they had a lot of support. They had a lot of stuff. They were ready to go. Kettle decides to follow them, this old lady. And we're like, well, we're not slowing down for you. And she's like, I didn't ask you to.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
She's
so
a badass. She's a badass, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really did love that. That they
like
just
they took off in the mountains, and it's like, you know, who is that following that will not go away? Yeah. Like she was just like,
we're not waiting for you. We're not going to slow down for you. We're not making any allowances for the fact that you're old. We didn't ask you to come.
Yeah.
But we're also human enough that of a nighttime, when you catch up, there'll be soup.
Yeah.
There'll be a warm place to sleep. Because we're not actually preventing you from joining us.
Yeah.
We're just not going to make allowances. And Kettle's okay with that. She's like, that's fine. I didn't ask you to wait. Everybody's clear. And then we get the brutality of the travel through the mountains. And again, the pace comes right back down again. After all of the, Fitz is going to die, and he's got an arrow in his back, and it's all got infected, and it's all horrible, and they can steal his child. And we're getting dream sequences of Shade.
Yeah.
And we're getting dream sequences of Nettle. And we're going to walk through the snow. Walk through the snow. Walk through the snow. Drink some tea.
Yeah.
Walk through the snow. And then we start to get hints that Nettle's a little bit more than she appears. What is this weird game that she learnt as a child in Buckkeep that Fitz has never heard of? Who was the queen when you were a little girl? Okay, you're way older than we thought you were.
Oh, yeah.
You know, suddenly she's this rather delightful mystery to solve.
Yeah.
As she's giving Fitz skill lessons. Ultimately, this will protect your mind.
Yeah.
And they're all like, who are you? And she's horrified by how much they don't know.
Yeah.
All the while, not telling them the things that she knows.
Right.
Because grumpy old lady.
Well,
she's
entitled.
I kind of get it. It's like it's all around you. Open your eyes and you'll figure it out for yourself.
Sure.
You know, and what's really funny is on the reread, you're with Kettle. You're like,
oh, I don't. Yeah,
it's all around you.
It's right there. Yeah,
it's right there.
Yeah,
it's oddly amusing. You know, but and you know, she kills people, and we get little insights on the members of the party because it's very intimate.
Yeah,
they're this tiny group of people who are getting changed every night in the same tent, who are bathing in the same water. It's very intimate. At the same time as there is you've got a minstrel and a queen.
You've got a bard with you, right?
And an assassin and an old lady. This is not a combination of people anybody would have guessed at.
Right.
And yet also a very traditional questing party.
Yeah. Yeah. But it feels completely fresh, right?
Yeah.
Completely fresh. Yeah. Because they each bring their own motivations for how they got
Yeah.
there. And yeah, very, very, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. We get a very lovely moment with Night Eyes in Assassin's Quest when Fool is going through a changing time. He's feverish. His skin is peeling. He's not coping. He's going through a phase. And one night they go to bed, and instead of sleeping next to Fitz, Night Eyes sleeps along the tent wall between Fool and the tent wall. And Fitz is like, hello? And he's like, is he not Pack?
Yeah.
Did he not give us his home? And I was like, oh my God, Night Eyes.
Yeah. There's such a beautiful relationship between Night Eyes and Fool, right? Like that
Because
grows.
he has his own relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you see it, he has a different relationship with Ketchikan.
Mm-hmm.
They go hunting together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You hear Ketchikan saying, it's wonderful. I can feel his joy when I kill something.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's clearly an element of respect between them that's completely separate to her relationship with Fitz. She has a different, separate relationship with Night Eyes.
Right.
And the same with the Fool. And that's the moment when you really recognize that Night Eyes sees Fool differently to how Fitz does.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
And I love that. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because Night Eyes is the best.
No, he's I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah. He really is. He's sarcastic and incredibly funny.
Yeah.
And he's the first one to take the piss out of Fitz. Because he also thinks Fitz is an idiot.
He has his moments.
He has his moments.
Yeah.
But they're hunting, they're going, and then Fitz does a weird thing when they're on the skill road and he vanishes. What were you thinking when he vanishes?
Yeah, I was
the end of the skill road.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Mm-hmm.
That was surprising when the stone kind of transported him, and then also the stones were giving them some flashback dream sequences of the civilizations that had happened here, a little bit of context of what had gone on before, and that kind of thing. I thought that was real, and what I loved about that was the surprising element of that, and us being off the map.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said in book 2, we had traveled to Junpei. We'd traveled to this mountain kingdom, and we had met the royal family and how they do business, and got embroiled in court intrigue. Now we're past that. We're here. There be dragons, literally off the map, right?
Yeah.
So when these things start happening that didn't have a context in the magic that we have come to know and wit and skill, and it's vastly different of how to travel and how to give us flashbacks of what's happened in the past. Like I love that because it gave me that feeling of being off the map, and you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know what to expect.
So did you have any theories? Reading it, were you like, did I miss something? I'm always intrigued.
I really didn't. At that time, when I had that,
go with it.
When I had that bobble earlier on about, I thought this was moving a little slow for me, and I had to have like a kind of talk with myself. I was really at that point just really into just letting it unfold and go where she was going to take me. There's these moments I feel like sometimes when you're reading or you're watching a story or something, if it really speaks to you, you get this moment of complete confidence in the storyteller.
Yes.
And to me, that happened. It happened in each of the books. And I started to lose it a bit in 3. But then when it came back, when I stopped and slowed down and it came back, I never questioned it again. It's like, this is a master storyteller. She has an ending to this journey in mind. There's a reason for everything she's putting between me and that ending point. And I'm just going to look at all of it and examine all of it and be thrilled for the ride. And I didn't question any from that point on after a little bit of the walking through the snow. Pace questions I had.
Drinking tea. Yeah.
Yeah. Drinking tea, walking.
Yeah. That's Mike's one, was the drinking tea.
Yeah.
I never thought it was a problem until he mentioned it, and then I've noticed it every time I've read since.
Yeah, but it kind of fit in. There's
But it speaks to the addictive nature of
exactly.
the
I was going
magics,
to say that
you know?
there's a lot in this about the addictive quality of what's going on.
Yeah.
So I completely didn't have an issue with that at all.
Yeah, because the magic is addictive, and the thing that you take to make that die down is also addictive.
Right.
And we get a lot of context around addictive behaviors, which I always found quite powerful.
Oh, and then when it's throughout, right?
Yeah.
The addictive nature of Verity to not let go and save his people, the addictive nature of Ketrican to be brought up as a sacrifice, the addictive nature at the end of this creative fervor.
Yeah.
I just, I know
we're there. We're
about to get there.
Much there.
Yeah, when you get there, this passion, this addictive thing to bring this thing to life that you've quested to have, and you won't let go of it, even though it's probably ripping you apart.
And it's gonna take everything I've got, but I've started, so I'll finish.
Right.
That the most telling part of it, I think, for me, in understanding what Verity was doing, was when Ketrican tells them of their child, and he has nothing. And you're so with Fitz in
no, he does. He does. He's just not allowed. He's not allowed. He can't allow himself. If he for a moment allows himself to go back to where he was in his personhood, where that would impact him the way it would impact most people, right?
Yeah.
All of that journey that he's built up in his artistic expression is lost.
He would have to undo a lot of what was happening to be able to react to that, because he's quite literally given that capacity to the dragon. It's in the dragon now. It's not in him.
Right.
Within himself, he no longer has the capacity to react to Ketrican.
Yeah.
And we're with Fitz and his outrage. He's like, how can you give her nothing?
Yeah.
How? She has just bared her soul to you, the most painful thing she's ever happened to her, and nothing?
Yeah.
But the draw, the pull, the addiction, the need to protect his kingdom has taken everything. And he's given everything, and he's holding on so that there's enough of him to achieve his objective, and he's beginning to feel he's going to fail.
Oh yeah, and he would too.
And he would have failed had they not found him. Thankfully they did. It's rather wonderful storytelling, but
yeah.
But so many things had to happen for them to solve that problem. And again, suddenly, after walking in the snow and walking in the snow and walking in the snow, now we have to unlock this one's skill potential. We have to go and wake the dragons up. We've got to go and get skill on our hands. We've got to somehow make sure Ketrican's got a baby to go back with. We've got to do all of these things. And we've got to do it fast, because, oh, look, Regal's got an army coming.
Right. It's all that acceleration at the end again.
And you're like, whoa,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I did see, to me, this was the part that so personally spoke to me. I think anyone that's kind of been on a artist journey of any kind, right? It's just,
you can't hold yourself back. You've got to give everything.
To give everything. You're going to have to give
every
everything.
last piece of yourself.
And if that means
anything back,
if that means I have to give, I could stand in front of the person that I know loves me most, and tells me the thing that should crush me the most. If I have to wall myself off from that to make my creation breathe, then that's what it takes. That's who I am. And that's the journey I'm on. I'm a sacrifice myself. My expression is me.
Yeah.
And I've given up the me that you want me to react to you.
Yeah.
And it was so poignant, and it was so recognizable to me. this ending, and this unbelievable way to portray this beautiful, mythical Deus ex machina that's going to come in at
Yes.
the end and solve all the problems. This dragon, the way to portray this dragon was for us to put all of our belief and love and creativity to make it quicken and fly. Like, come on. That's just brilliant.
It is brilliant because we've
Yeah.
seen throughout the book that emotions, connection, feeling, memories, all of these
It's
things
everything.
that have been given to the dragon that dehumanizes Verity.
Yeah.
Is what gives power to this dragon. It's what gives force to this mighty thing.
Yeah.
But
again, how important is connection? If they had not found him and given him that injection of life at the end, he wouldn't have had that last little bit, right?
Yeah. And he still managed to not take anything of Fitz with him.
Yeah.
And Kestrel points that out. She says, you don't realize what it's costing him to not take you with him.
Yeah.
And
that's that father's
love. It's a weird
love.
sort of love thing that's coming that I could take him. He would let me. He's offering.
Oh, he's done it over and over again.
I don't want to take this kid's life again.
Yeah.
You know, and yet I will ask for a last sacrifice. I'm going to take your body and give my wife a child.
Yeah.
All very creepy, but a lot of sacrifice in that moment.
A lot
from everybody involved.
Yeah.
Because you sacrifice for your kingdom, and the need for this child is so overwhelmingly important.
Yeah.
For any of what they're doing to mean anything.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, it's that way for Fitz to give him that last connection, that last moment, all those things that he can live and take and then use.
And then, again, put into the dragon.
Yeah.
And they're big things. They're powerful things.
Oh,
they're the biggest,
life.
most powerful things.
It's life.
Literally
it's
creating
everything.
life.
Yeah.
You know,
everything.
These the biggest emotions. This is his way. He's not going to see her again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, these are huge things to put into this dragon. And the quiet moment that Fitz spends in Verity's body with the Fool.
Yeah.
While that's happening. And Fool is drawn to Girl on a Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And you see what it takes to fill a dragon. You're like, oh. And you've heard about these carvings, and you suddenly see that this, what looks like a weird carving of a girl trying to emerge from rock, was a failed attempt because she started to quicken and couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's literally trapped in this rock.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Fitz has had all of these memories just given back to him of his mother, because in unlocking Kestrel, he's unlocked his own memories of his mother. He's hurting so profoundly. Verity's about to abandon them. It's what? I've done all of this, and they're going to take my kid, and it's all gone.
It's all unraveling,
wrong.
and so it's his body being used, so he has an attachment to Ketrikin's kid too. Like there is an attachment here too. Yeah.
And now we've had, in his dreams of Molly and Burke, we've had Molly fulfilling this burgeoning relationship, and that's broken Fitz.
Oh, it's broken. It's broken him.
And he pours it into the Girl and the Dragon.
Also, it's everything to him, because they're going to be safe. They're going to be protected. They're taking the steps they need to take.
It's that heartbreak and heartening, both at the same time. That only true tragedy can give you.
Right.
And he pours it into Girl on the Dragon. So these recently re-won memories of his mother into the dragon. You know, all of the power and depth and passion of this teenage love for Molly in the dragon. Mm-hmm. All of the hurt and the betrayed feeling that Burke could take her from him into the dragon. You know, all of that poison that just eats at you into the dragon.
Mm-hmm. Every scar he carries, every scar.
Yeah.
The poisoning, the arrow, the torturous death when he was beat to death. Yeah. All of that. Yeah.
All into the dragon. And it really brings home to him how much Verity has given to his carving, because of its enormity. He's like, I've achieved this tiny bit of creation on this girl on a dragon, and Verity has his love and his passion for his people is so enormous. It has created this absolute beast of a dragon.
Yeah.
That he will be quickening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's kind of outrageous and, again, heartening. It's that heartbreak. It's
so I mean, you can't have tragedy without life, right? If there's not the beauty of life, there's no tragedy, because you can't take away from it. So
that's right.
It's that beautiful dichotomy, and it's that moment, these amazing meta moments for me. Sometimes when you're reading or taking in a piece of art that really speaks to you, right? Don't you feel like you can sometimes reach through and touch the artist, touch the message, touch their moment of life that they're putting into their work? And I just felt so much Robin Hobb at this point.
That moment of clarity,
having this meta thing of what creation takes.
Yeah.
How much of her life she's given to it. Yeah. How much love she's given these characters that I'm reading about right now. How much they mean to her, which dwarfs what they mean to me, and they're profound to me. All of these meta things started to hit me here at this end as well. Yeah,
because it sounds very strange, and anyone who hasn't read Hobb, A, shouldn't be here, and B, understands what I'm about. I mean, seriously, come on, what are you doing? Yeah. But when you read Hobb, she sort of lays bare your heart. She sort of rips your chest open and goes, I've got to pour some stuff in here. And one of those things is, I don't know, friggin' magic mushrooms or something that just puts you on a plane that you understand. Yeah. Everything is crystal clear. That what is important is not what we're giving energy to. Yeah. The important things are these core pieces of ourselves. They're the things that we're passionate about. They're the things we love. They're the things that so often we hurt because we don't communicate properly. Yeah. And Hobb does this in a way that you read it and you're like, okay, I'm going to be a better friend starting now. Yeah. I'm going to be a better daughter.
Because it's so relatable. It's so relatable. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a real power to that. And then we come back again to this need for connection, because Fitz has had his mission to go and wake up the other dragons, which he's like, well, there's a freaking fool's errand if ever there was one. But that's the title of the next Fitz book. But it's actually not related. But to wake up these dragons, and it takes more than what anyone thought it would. It takes far more to create this bond that they need to survive. It takes risk and blood and wit and being able to communicate and being able to accurately share what's at stake. And my blood, my mental ability, all of this together is what it takes to waken these sleeping dragons. And if you take that in context of the metaphor of creation, of anything of merit, it takes effort to waken these things. When you've had a passion that has dwindled, when you've almost done something and it takes as much to rekindle this force, to reinvigorate something that once was mighty. Yeah. But when you decide to do it, when you put your mind to it, if you're prepared to take the risk, it's worth it. You can wake this up. You can become this enormous force. You can give something immeasurable to the world with that risk, with that gift of yourself. Right. And we see, between Fitz's blood and the skill command and the wit, we are pack. We get from the wit. The skill command is you're in Verity's pack. We're defending Buck. Those two things together meant that when those stone dragons did rise and they did fly to the defense of Buck, none of the people of the Six Duchies got hurt. Not one. These are things that would have torn them apart without that message
Mm-hmm.
that only Fitz could give them, that
Mm-hmm.
only Night Eyes could make sure they all shared.
Right.
The crucial nature of them coming together in that moment, and all of their magics and all of their driving force, everything they've learned on this quest. That is our purpose, is to defend,
Isn't it?
to allow this palace to be glorious in the middle of the inland nations,
Yeah.
to allow these pampered boys to think they can bully a stranger. Is because we defend it.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yeah. Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. And you take the leap, you take the risk,
You take
and
the risk.
you bring into the same sphere, you bring in together the mystery of the nature and the human connection, right?
Yeah.
It takes both. It takes
It
both.
does.
Because what's the danger of when these dragons wake up? They're animalistic. They'll turn on whatever's
Precisely.
near them.
They will.
So you have to have control of the animalistic with the humane. And you have to have the animal to make them pack.
Yeah, to make them want to get involved.
It's this drawing together of both these things, one that's been ostracized and misunderstood. And it's this drawing together of both that brings about this resolution.
Yeah.
And really beautiful.
Just the nature of Farseer is so much the potential and the willingness to give and the sacrifice. What can you achieve with it?
Yeah.
And we see rather wonderfully, and a lot of people have a problem with it, and I get it, that we don't see the end to the war. We don't see any of what happens. It's all off page. We get told about it because Fitz stays behind.
Right.
I mean, did you feel hard done by? Was that something that you would have liked more of? Or?
I do get it. I do get it. Some people would like, well, we built up to this huge battle and I didn't get the battle, right? But for me, that wasn't the story. For me, the story was this one man's journey, and this one man's journey to young adulthood at this point, and this one man's journey of understanding himself and these two different pools, the loyalty to the human world and his mentors, and the loyalty to the mysteries of nature's world that he's very much a part of. When he meets these other, people with the bear and all the, and he wants to go back and learn from them. And he really has to come into himself and learn himself and take all of his scars that he's earned, and take the leap and use all of that. To me, that was the story. That was the story. The ending for me was wherever Fitz was standing, because this was his journey. And it happened over there that, and he knew about it because of this omniscient power he had there at the end.
Wonderful.
Which is great for storytelling.
This writing tool that's just wonderful.
I didn't feel let down at all. For me, it was all about Fitz's journey into young adulthood. But I'm weird. For me, some of the most thrilling scenes, like I'm reading book 4 of the Stormlight Archives, and it's like the most thrilling scene for me is like, and I'm reading it with someone, and I text them the other today, and it's like, oh my God, chapter 6 or 6 is two people in a room talking, but it's everything I've waited for, So I'm a little bit different. So I do get it.
That's what a Song of Ice and Fire is. The best scenes are
just when
just people talking. It's knowing what the depth of the story is and the weight of the words.
And you get those two powerhouses together, and what's going to happen? What are they going to say? I love that. Absolutely love that. So, but I get it. It just wasn't that way for me.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad, because it does bother quite a few people. So to sort of finish off the Farseer journey, I will say you will get more answers to the red ships.
Oh, good.
Later events, you will get more answers to the weird city he visited. You will get a lot of context for a lot of Fool's Quest. To my mind, it gives the best value for reread Assassin's Quest in terms of how much richer that story becomes with context. And the value of so much of what goes on in Farseer still is paying off in the very last trilogy, which is astonishing, but it's true. And you've said that you're likely to pick up Madship in the new year.
I mean, I hope so. I hope to get to. I know I can take some breaks between, but I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay away too long.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about reading and publication order and all the rest of it. You do need to read them in order, but you can take sizable breaks between each sub bit, because there is a time jump between all of the sub bits, and they all shift place in the world. So you'll go from these characters, then there'll be some years, and you'll be somewhere else with different people. And then when you finish Liveship, you can take a break because there'll be a time jump, and then you'll be somewhere else, but you'll come back to Fitz's world.
Okay.
And then there'll be a time jump, and you'll be somewhere else, and then you come back to Fitz. And many readers don't want to go away from Fitz and take a long time to go to Liveship Traders. I get it. I love Fitz too. He lives rent-free in my heart. Liveship Traders is an astonishingly good trilogy. Astonishingly good. When readers do finally get to Liveship Traders, the almost unanimous response is, why did I wait so long to read Liveship? I should have just read Liveships.
Yeah.
And then you come back to Fitz and Tawny Man. Liveships is very different. It has multiple POV. It's talking ships, which sounds absurd.
Okay.
I promise you it's worth it. I promise. And I obviously am waiting with bated breath to follow your journey through Liveships.
Well, when I finish up Liveship, we got to do this again, right? Like we have.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I want to hear. That's all I want to hear. Okay.
So yeah, other than Fitz and Night Eyes, I'm going to say, who's your favorite character in Farseer?
I gotta go
Do
Burridge.
you even have one?
No, I have to do Burridge because he really, really reminds me of my father.
Yeah.
And
then your father was a good man.
Well, I like to think of him that way. I don't know.
Hey, look, Boric has his faults as well.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody really obtains that title or not, but I like to think of him that way. And Burridge really reminded me of him.
Yeah, no.
And his struggles to be one. His struggles to be a good.
Yeah, he tries. Like he genuinely tries to be a good person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just thrilled that you had such a moving journey with the trilogy, and I love that you gave her your trust and just let her take you.
Yeah.
With the journey, I'm so happy.
I can't. I'm telling you, I'm excited for Liveship, Jerry, and thank you. I have to tell you how much this means to me is to spend time with you, and talk about what it meant, and go over everything, and just to have a new friend and confidant that I can talk about this journey and experience with is just magical. I just want to thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to come and talk to me. I will never get enough of talking about this series. As you now know, there's so much that you can talk about in these. Well, there's so much we didn't touch on. There's so much that could still.
We hardly talked about the Fool, which is huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's so much that, I mean, like I said, I could talk until the world ends about this series because it's so very, very rich. So thank you for adding to the different ways I can view this, because this is the first time I've been given an artist's view of this, of a creative view of this, about giving something your life force, about birthing a thing. And it has opened a whole nother realm to me of depth to the story.
Yeah.
And I can never thank you enough for that. Like anybody who reads these books and shares their thoughts.
Sure. And isn't that the magic?
Adds to it.
Yes. Every time someone comes to a piece of art, it's a collaboration, because the audience has such an important part in that art. So everyone brings their own past, their own souls, their own experience, their own expectations, their wants and their desires when they take that art in, and it makes it something new every time. Every time. And the more time we sit and talk with each other about it and share what it meant for us, that's where the magic is. Yes.
I entreat everybody in the chat and anyone who watches this back later, if you've read these books and you have any thoughts about it that you want to share, join a Discord. Join a Discord. I don't know.
I know mine.
It's
mine
fabulous.
has a thread for it for sure.
I am present in the Hobb thread. John is present in the Hobb thread. You will not be spoiled. I have very good spoiler behavior outside of my channel.
Right.
But this is why my channel is a safe place.
But we put out warnings. We warned everyone. We warned everyone. Yeah.
And if you have any thought, and not even just about this series, if you just love books like we love books, because
yes,
love books, join a Discord. I cannot tell you enough how fabulous it is to talk to other people about the things we love, because we all love them so much.
Yes.
So join a Discord if you haven't already.
Yes.
John has a lovely one. I shall put an invite link in the description.
Oh, John, that'd be wonderful, Derek. Thank you so much. This was just
goodness, 2.5 hours.
You know what, though? It flew by, and I looked forward to this all day long, and it just did not disappoint. You are so delightful, and you're so open, and you're so genuine. You're so wonderful in your interpretation of this art and this artist and this work. And it just, I got to tell you, it really, really enriched my experience. And I can't wait to come back and talk about live shit.
I'm so looking forward to that. It's a little bit ridiculous because I have just had a marvelous conversation with you about Farseer. So I should be thankful for that. So I'm not taking away from this one. It was fabulous. So I will let you go because it is 2.5 hours. So everybody watching, I'm going to love you and leave you. Have a lovely week, everybody.